Today on The Report, we discuss Rishi Sunak being appointed as the UK's new Prime Minister.
Plus, TikTok comes under fire for the spread of misinformation, and the Oxford school shooter pleads guilty in a landmark case.
A COVID-19 study links vaccine side effects with a greater antibody response, and racist graffiti is found on the CSUF campus. The report starts now.
Hello, I'm Amanda Nemec.
I'm Enrique Medina.
And I'm Elmira Darmanian. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at The Report CSUF or our Titan TV Instagram at Titan TV CSUF to keep in touch with us and view our new content.
Former Finance Minister Rishi Sunak is now Britain's new Prime Minister. Sunak, a multi-millionaire former banker, is the first person of color to take on the role. He is also the first Hindu to become Prime Minister of Britain, and at 42 years old, the youngest Prime Minister in more than 200 years. Sunak is the United Kingdom's third leader in just 7 weeks, since his predecessor Liz Truss resigned after only 45 days in office. Sunak was appointed by the lawmakers of the Conservative Party rather than being elected by the United Kingdom citizens, since a general election is not due until 2024. Sunak's victory comes after the only opposing candidate, Penny Mordaunt, failed to secure enough support from fellow lawmakers before the deadline. Sunak's first public statement discussed how the country is facing a, quote, profound economic challenge, end quote. He pledged to work towards stability and unity and added that he would make it his priority to unite the party and the country. Sunak has been invited to form a government by King Charles III, and he is currently appointing members of his cabinet. Many believe that it will be difficult to bring economic calm and stability due to the cost of living crisis Britain is currently facing. The crisis was caused by a rise in inflation, as well as the economic impact of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and of course, the COVID-19 pandemic. The cost of energy and essential goods has increased significantly, leading many households across the UK to struggle financially. In a recent poll, the British public are now favoring the Labour Party, putting them ahead of the Conservatives by a record-breaking margin. It seems that Sunak will have a tough job in trying to gain voters' trust in his party. So what do you guys think about Liz Truss resigning after only 45 days in office, which is also the shortest time for any UK Prime Minister?
Yeah, it's crazy. And to be honest, I kind of feel like she essentially set herself up for failure. Specifically, Liz Truss, she refused to appoint anyone into her government that had not supported her campaign. So she was very for people being a part of her government or people being enemies and not having them be a part of their government. So in that sense, not having the people there, the talent to help support the United Kingdom. Also, her mini budget plan, which is a plan that she had to better help financially Great Britain. It essentially went down into flames and did not work one bit. So economically, she only worsened the situation, and the value of the pound actually worsened because of her.
I feel like it depends on the people who are making a choice trust more. Because if Liz Truss is not able to gain the trust of people who she's working with, the trust of people that are voting for her, it's a big problem because eventually this is what is making the choice. But if he was able to gain the trust, good for him. I mean, maybe people made the right choice and it's going to be a greater future for Great Britain.
Yeah, and ultimately he is set up in a very tough situation, but I do have confidence that he could potentially find something out and hopefully lead Great Britain in the right direction.
Yeah, and also I know the labor laws are being challenged right now in the country, so it's going to be interesting to see what Sunak can do and hopefully surprise us and bring some positivity back into it.
Yeah, because it's a tough situation right now, but hopefully you're right. In other news, TikTok is under scrutiny for the dangerous spread of misinformation. Preliminary research from Global Witness and the cybersecurity team at NYU is suggesting that the video platform fails to properly filter out fake news from their advertisements. In a recent experiment, TikTok has been identified to, quote, perform the worst out of all of the platforms tested, end quote, approving more false advertisements than sites like Facebook and YouTube. These findings are a major concern considering TikTok influences more than 80 million monthly users alone in the US, and many young Americans have in fact indicated it is their primary source of news. As a relevant example of this potential threat, the TikTok user base is currently susceptible to being misled on the political campaigns revolving around the US midterm election. TikTok reportedly approved 90% of advertisements spreading election misinformation, featuring wrong election dates, false voting requirements, and faulty rhetoric dissuading their participation. This is no surprise when TikTok has previously faced challenges monitoring misinformation about current events such as the war in Ukraine. Olivia Little, a Media Matters researcher, claims that, quote, TikTok's hyper-tailored algorithm can blast random accounts into virality very quickly, end quote, which makes it an ideal pathway for false news. An additional cause for concern is the 40% of Gen Z participating in its user base that are not trained in media literacy to recognize this disinformation. And according to the Reboot Foundation, 67% of US teenagers use the app on average of 99 minutes per day. TikTok's global business president, Blake Chanley, responded, quote, TikTok is first and foremost an entertainment platform, end quote. And to that end, they are in the process of making several changes to counter the issue at hand. Yeah, so considering the issue with TikTok and this higher rate that we see of misinformation on the app, do we think that TikTok should be held accountable to this degree, or do you think this is more of an issue where we need to teach our youth about media literacy and making sure what's right and what's wrong?
This is a tough subject just because I have mixed views on it personally. I mean, everybody knows when you downloaded TikTok for the first time that it was seen as something, because it came from Vine.
Yes, it did.
So it was seen as something that was, funny, joke, lighthearted. It wasn't supposed to be a central news channel for people. And that's kind of just what has happened, in the past with TikTok growing so much and everybody using it is you can find anything nowadays on it, for not just news, sports, everything. So this is a very tough call on what they're gonna do and how they're gonna go about it. But what are your thoughts?
I just think what is confusing and honestly kind of surprising more for me is that the amount of time people spend on this app. Honestly, the thing that we have in settings on our phones is that the time limit, which I personally use on a lot of apps, and I think that is a good advice for everybody who spends endless amount of time on TikTok and apps that are supposed to be for entertainment. But in regards to the misinformation, I mean, TikTok, I feel like a lot of people have an income from this app because they're doing it professionally, and we can't really tell. It's a tough situation because some people have passion for it, and we can't really do anything about it. What do you think?
Yeah, and I do think as far as this whole issue is concerned about TikTok being held accountable, I do think ultimately in the short term, they should be the ones that should be held accountable, especially with the midterms coming in just like a week or so. So I do think that as far as this whole situation is concerned, that in the short term, maybe we could find solutions such as TikTok, maybe providing some sort of algorithm where they make sure that videos are fact-checked and things like that. But my question is, will they be able to get that done in time? And it's a tough situation. And I think more so as far as our youth is concerned, we know that they're the future of this country. So we want to make sure we have information that's both true and information that will impact them and our country ultimately. So I think it's just a tough situation to really talk about and really understand because we just don't know how things are going to go in the future.
Right. Hopefully, something like elections, we can definitely, at least in that sense, get the right facts for the people.
I think it is a difficult situation because a lot of people are influenced by that, and we definitely have to make some sort of decision. On Monday, October 24th, 16-year-old Ethan Crumbley pleaded guilty to 1 count of terrorism causing death, 4 counts of first-degree murder, and 19 other charges stemming from the November 30th mass shooting at Oxford High School in Auckland County, Michigan. It has been called a landmark case, as Auckland County Prosecutor Karen McDonald said, quote, "We are not aware of any other case anywhere in the county where a mass shooter has been convicted of terrorism on state charges," end of quote. Originally, Crumbly pleaded not guilty to the charges, but he changed his pleas at the hearing on the 24th, admitting to killing each victim. Crumbly confirmed that on the day of the shooting, he got a gun from an unlocked container in his home, hid it in his backpack, and pulled it out of his bag in the bathroom before opening fire on his schoolmates. Ethan Crumbly faces up to life in prison without a parole on several charges. Families of the victims and survivors were in court for Crumbly's guilty plea, and Oxford Community School Superintendent Ken Weaver said the guilty pleas were, quote, "a step toward bringing justice for Hannah, Justin, Madison, Tate, and all who have been affected by that horrible day," end of quote. However, this may not be the last time Crumbly speaks before the court. He could be called to testify at the trial of his parents in January 2023, Jennifer and James Crumbly, who were arrested after going on the run following the shooting. Both are charged with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter, as prosecutors argue they gave their son easy access to a gun they bought for him and disregarded signs that he was a threat. Crumbly's parents both pleaded not guilty, and their attorneys have argued they should not be held responsible for their son's actions. So obviously it is a terrible situation, and another shooting in the school. What do you guys think about Crumbly being convicted of terrorism and not just murder in this case?
It's a very interesting situation because we don't typically see that at the state level. Just to put it into perspective, according to the Michigan Penal Code, Section 750.543B, I know that sounds like a lot, but in that section it states, quote, "An act of terrorism means a willful and deliberate act that is all of the following, which includes an act that would be a violent felony under the laws of the state, whether or not committed in this state, an act that the person knows or has reason to know is dangerous to human life." And I think that's where it really comes down to him being convicted as with something of terrorism, because he's doing something intentionally that essentially damage and harm human lives at a school.
And also, we don't really know all the details about the case, because we're not in court and it's all private. And what do you think about his parents? Should they be charged for manslaughter?
I personally think to take it to that level that they're gonna have to pay for what he did, to me that just seems wrong. I don't think that the parents should have to endure or take the penalties of what he did. However, I do believe that they shouldn't. One, they had said that gun was meant for him. And then 2, they left it unlocked. And then 3, if you are a parent or somebody that has a younger child in the household, you should, if you are gonna have a gun, you should be monitoring it at all times and not leave it unlocked, especially in this case scenario.
Yeah, I agree. And it's really middle bound because for all I know, maybe they just had the gun because we know here in the United States, a lot of people have guns in case for protection and if anything were to go haywire and anything were to go bad. So they could have had the gun just for that, but they were irresponsible in having it so freely open and for their son to use that's where the problem came up.
I completely agree, but another thing that I wanted to mention is that sadly, none of the lives that we're taking away are going to be brought back by just arresting someone. I'm not saying that the punishment should not be there. I'm saying it should be. But in the question of parents, the only thing that they're guilty of is the fact that they left the gun unlocked and literally gave it to the child. Not physically gave it to him, but like it was meant to be his.
Well, they did say that there was going to be another hearing, so we'll just have to wait and see and stay tuned. In the medical community, a COVID-19 study has linked vaccine side effects with a greater antibody response. Many people who were exposed to the vaccine and booster shots have experienced some unwanted side effects such as fever, chills, or muscle pain. However, new studies have revealed that these symptoms can be associated with a greater antibody response in comparison to those who remained unaffected. Although there may be some discomfort, post-vaccination symptoms are proposed to be signals of their effectiveness. This reinforces the long-term benefits for individuals, specifically older adults who get the booster. Dr. William Schaffner, professor and medical director in the field of infectious diseases, reassured that, quote, the reaction is their immune system responding, actually in a rather good way, to the vaccine, end quote. Now, this isn't to say that people who had no adverse reaction to the vaccine don't receive the same benefit, but studies show that the boost in antibody performance is in fact less by a small margin. Dr. Schaffner wanted to put to rest worries on both sides of reactions, since many were worried as to how their bodies were actually impacted. Now it is clear that after completing a 2-dose vaccination, a positive antibody response can be identified in everyone, meaning that they will have a better chance of avoiding COVID moving forward. In the recent study, 928 people, primarily consisting of white adults with an average age of 65, were asked to track their symptoms post-vaccination. Out of the 48% of these participants who reported systemic symptoms, positive antibody reactivity was observed in a staggering 99%. These findings should help counter the apprehension of those making the conscious decision to remain unprotected from the virus. So do we think that these new findings could, in fact, choose or help people choose to get vaccinated more?
I do ultimately think, similar to the early stages of the pandemic, that people will make their decision because it's their choice. I could maybe see for a select few people who maybe want that scientific research to back up their decision, maybe actually aiming to get the vaccine now. But I think for the most part, it's still just such a tough decision for people, and people have the reasons why, So I still think in that sense, I don't think it'll increase the numbers that much.
I think the numbers will get increased because if you have a scientific explanations to what is this vaccine specifically doing, what are going to be the after effects and everything, I think people might be choosing to get vaccinated more at this point. So I agree.
I have to agree with both, just in the sense that this is, a step closer into helping COVID-19 be cleared eventually. That's the goal. Also, however, I feel like people are so set in their ways nowadays. It's hard to sway someone to another perspective when it has been going on so long and people are so rooted in what they believe about COVID-19. So it is going to be interesting to see, will it increase?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to mention that, like you had mentioned earlier, that the numbers could possibly increase. I know we talked about it. I don't know if it was last week or a few weeks before that essentially it feels like this is almost like another flu shot. So in that sense, maybe kind of giving that point of view, it'll help people maybe be more willing to actually get the vaccine.
The thing that I wanted to mention that we talked about last week, not last week, but some time ago. The thing is that do people still think that COVID is still here? Because some don't. So this can also influence their decision at this point. So yeah, the whole situation is just confusing, and I think everybody has their own opinion on that.
And also, I do want to note that basically what we're talking about is that if you do get the vaccine and let's say you do feel ill or these symptoms, it's actually a good sign. It's actually showing that you are building up those antibodies. Even if you are going to miss one day of work, it is going to be effective in the long run. So it is a good thing.
So at the end of the day, it is a positive outcome. In campus news, offensive graffiti was found posted on the doors of 3 rooms in Hawley Residential Hall. On the morning of Friday, October 21st, the executive director for Housing and Residential Engagement said that 3 informational boards were vandalized with anti-Black, racist, sexist, misogynistic, anti-Semitic, and xenophobic words and symbols. The vice president of Student Affairs released a statement on the behalf of the university denouncing the act and reinforcing their goals of diverse and inclusive campus. This statement continued by saying that although CSUF is a public university that protects freedom of speech, the university prioritizes a safe campus for all students. The housing department says they are taking the incident very seriously and have held a meeting to bring the community together and to develop a response. They are offering support resources to the impacted communities, which includes temporary housing and crisis counseling. Following the incident of the racial slur found on the dumpster last month, this is the second time racist graffiti has appeared on campus this semester. The housing department are working with campus police to begin investigating the incident. Students have any information to report about the incident, they may contact the housing or police department. I honestly think that it is unacceptable. So what do you guys think about the housing department and how are they handling this situation? Because it happened the second time this semester.
Yeah, and I do think they're, specifically to this response, it's been great. They're offering students counseling and things of that nature to make sure they're okay, because something like that, although maybe on the surface level you might not think it's not that offensive, but really like it can create worries, because then you think, like, who are the people that I'm going to class with, or are there any threats here on campus? Because you see those things, and that's something we really don't think about, but I do think the campus is actually handling it very, very well.
And what do you think about the university statement?
I honestly have to agree with Enrique. I think that they're doing a very good job in handling it, just because I know that our school specifically has like a wellness center, and they do a really good job at promoting it to students that need it. And it makes me sad just to see like how hard the campus works to create this almost safe environment for their students, very diverse environment. And it just stinks to see, for the second time in the first semester, somebody vandalizing, basically contradicting everything that the school believes. So it's very sad to see.
Yeah, it definitely is. And hopefully this isn't a reoccurring theme, something we see more often. Obviously, it's not something we could fully prevent. Maybe we could take certain measures to help prevent that, but ultimately we'll just have to wait and see and hope that it doesn't happen again. Now, the inspiring story of an 8-year-old mountain climber who is attempting to make history. Sam Adventure Baker from Colorado is set to climb to the summit of El Capitan in California's Yosemite National Park. With a middle name like Adventure and being born into a climbing family, it's no surprise that this young boy is out to do big things. His father, Joe Baker, commented that Sam, quote, was in a harness before he could even walk, end quote. At age 3, Sam completed his first multi-pitch route at the Garden of the Gods in Colorado Springs. When he turned 6, he conquered the Lost Arrow Spire route, a 3-pitch climbing starting 2,500 feet above Yosemite Valley. Now Sam aims to take on the Class 5 climb of El Capitan, which measures 2.5 times as tall as the Empire State Building. The father-son duo will climb as part of a 4-person team, and Sam will attempt to lead one of the pitches, setting the ropes for those and others to follow. Although the route is for expert climbers, Sam has been rigorously training to take on the challenge every day for the last 18 months. The plan is to climb 4 days straight, camp overnight at the top of the summit, and then hike down 8 miles on the 5th day. A major obstacle aside from the demanding climb itself will be planning on how much gear to take in tow, considering they will need to carry up to 200 pounds of water to keep hydrated. Sam is excited to make the journey with his father, and the two have even lined up activities for when they reach the top. There, they will be a viewing of The Lion King, accompanied by gas stove lasagna, followed by some strategic games of chess. We wish Sam the best of luck and look forward to hearing more about his adventure up on the mountain.
And with that, that's all the time we have for today.
Have a great week, everyone, and stay tuned for more news, views, and info.
We'll see you next time on The Report.